You know those clients with the champagne taste and the beer budget? Today we're going to talk about how to handle them. Hi, I'm Jenny and I teach wedding cake makers how to get better referrals, to get better leads, to book better weddings and run a successful, sustainable wedding cake business. Okay, so let's talk about the couples that come in and they show you a beautiful, beautiful cake that you're looking at thinking, oh my God, that's at least $3,000. And they have a budget of $1,000. How do you handle it? All right, the first thing that you want to do is understand they don't know what they're looking at. This is a whole new world to them. So I can't even tell you how many people that I meet, couples that I meet that come in that actually think that I make the cake the day of the wedding. So like they have no idea the process that goes into this. So first understand that they just don't know what they're looking at. So it's really not their fault. They look at something that says, looks simple, and they'll say like, oh, I love just like this simple design, and you're looking at it and it's fondant and sugar flowers, and yeah, the design looks simple, but when you look at the elements that go into it, there's nothing simple about it. So understand that they don't realize this. Okay, so you don't want to come across as like condescending, and you don't want to educate them on what they're doing. That's the first thing. So just have that understanding. And then the second thing too is don't put your money beliefs upon them. Okay, meaning, we all come into this business with our own history and our own thoughts about money. So when something, don't assume that they are going to think something is expensive or cheap or whatever. That's just us doing that. And the biggest joke in the business, I joke around with my friends all the time, like, I can't afford myself. If I was getting married, I wouldn't go to me. I'm like priced out of my market. So just understand that too, and don't try not to reflect your money beliefs on them. So then what can you do? So when you're meeting with your couples, the thing that you want to do, and I never ask my couples if they have a budget, because I don't want that to go into my design. I want to know what they want visually, what they want taste wise, and then go from there. So we don't even talk budget. I do send them some basic pricing before they meet with me, so they have a pretty good idea of what they're looking at per person. But I don't talk budget until we meet. So when we do meet, we design together, and I pull elements of what they like, and I design for them based on that. So if we design a cake, say it is, again, sugar flowers and fondant and all these elements that they love, and we design this super formal, super expensive cake for them, and they're like, hey, listen, this is just out of my budget. Okay, now it's up to me as their vendor, as someone on their team trying to work with them. It's up to me to come up with ways to give them options, to give them the same look for not as much money. Okay, maybe we ditch the fondant, maybe we use fresh flowers instead of sugar flowers. But again, like, they don't understand. Again, they don't know, like, looking at a sugar flower, they don't understand that every petal is cut out and then rolled by hand and formed by hand, and it takes hours and hours and hours and hours. So if they're looking at something and they love that sugar flower look, um, again, like, they might just be looking at the look of it and not the whole feel of it, and not particularly sugar flowers. So sometimes what I'll say to someone is, well, okay, is it, are you looking for an art piece? So like, say I already designed a cake and it was sugar flowers, just to use that as a perfect example, because this happens all the time. I'll ask them, is it the look that you like of it, or do you want an art piece? And, if they're just looking for a pretty cake, it makes sense to me to make them a pretty cake and use fresh flowers and save them all the money and save me all the time, because honestly, in reality, if I do a simple buttercream cake with fresh flowers, I can probably fit in another wedding that week and make more money than I would have on the sugar flowers. Okay, and that's a whole different discussion when we get into how to make this business sustainable and make it so that you're not working 90 hours a week. But so that is, consider that part of our job, is to give them options to stay within budget and keep them make sure that they still get what they want visually. And the other thing that this does for them, this builds a lot of trust and it gives you a lot of credibility as a business owner, because they know that you're not out there just trying to gouge them. Okay. And then you can also give them options like doing backup cakes in the kitchen. So if they have a wedding for 175 people, hey, let's do the display cake for 100 people. That's still going to look beautiful and you can have the look that you want, but we'll just make extra cake so it won't be 5 tiers or whatever. So that's another way that you can give them options. And then here's the other part of it. Once you give them all the options of what they can do not, I repeat, do not justify or apologize for your pricing. This is really, really, really important, because if people think they can get a discount and ask you to take money off, you don't want them. I mean, that just is not in this industry for the service that we provide. I mean, would you ever do that anywhere else? Like go to a restaurant, like, oh my gosh, the porterhouse is $45. Could you do it for 35? Like that's just not a thing. So people feel that they can do that with us, and that comes from us opening up that boundary for them to ask us. So when they know that there is no option as far as asking for a discount or asking for money off, when they know that's not an option, they won't do it. But when they find if you're coming off as not as confident or sure of your pricing, they're going to pick that up energetically, and they're going to ask you. Okay. And I've had people do that to me. They don't do it anymore, but I have had people do that to me. Like, oh, we love your cakes, but we can't afford $1,000, whatever. So I'm like, thank you so much. And like I said, I give them ways to stay within budget. If I can, if it's an option to maybe switch the design around a little bit or make the cake smaller and do sheet cakes or something like that. But after that, if they don't want to pay for it, or if they can't pay for it, that's fine. That's fine. That's not a reflection on us. That is not something that we have to feel bad about. That is not something that you have to feel guilty about. Listen, these are your prices. You offered them all the things that you could offer them, and then walk away. Okay? If they don't hire you, walk away. If they do hire you, knock it out of the park. And again, like when you offer them options and show that you are on their team, they are going to respect you more, and I can pretty much assure you they'll go with you just for working with them. But again, you have to say it with conviction, and you don't justify anything. Don't apologize for anything. Like I said, you don't have to tell them every single thing that goes into making a wedding cake. If they ask you, absolutely, but you don't have to tell them that. You don't have to explain the process. They don't need to know. All they need to know is they're going to have a beautiful wedding cake on that day, and they are going to feel like they got every penny's worth, and that you worked with them, and that you respect yourself enough to not lower your prices based on what we're doing, and everybody will be happy, and you will get so many referrals from all the other wedding professionals in that wedding. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about today. It's a little bit tricky when you're working with people that, again, they are very price conscious, but this is how to handle it with confidence. All right, so thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next week. Bye.